All right, everybody. So this is our very first episode of the Visionary Effect, and this is going to be a series of, I don't know if I'm going to call it podcast or whatever people call it these days, but a series of videos that I'm going to put out for to help the community in general, the community of entrepreneurs and people that are true visionaries. And when I was thinking about this, first and foremost, I had this thought about the visionary effect circa, I think was either February or of 18 or 19, as I was driving from Florida to South Carolina to give a training. And I was talking to another visionary about this, and I remember him saying, well, this can actually be a pretty interesting topic. So when I was thinking about who would I like to invite as my first guest to this very candid conversation, there's only one name that came to my mind, and it was my good friend Dennis Shai, who is also a visionary Doberman personality. So, Dennis, welcome, and it's your birthday, so this is really exciting. You're the first
Ah,
one on this attempt of mine to talk to visionaries and to help people. But you're here, and today's your birthday. So, Dennis, why don't you share with us, with the audience, a little bit about? Let's start with this one. What was the first thing that you thought about me when you first met me, if you even remember
I
that
said, this woman's
day?
crazy. I remember being at a pretty large conference with a group of others, and I felt like I was being tracked and followed by retaliators. Because I know you had tried to reach out to me, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 times prior. And not that I was dodging, it's just that my schedule didn't allow for me to make that commitment to you at the time.
That is not the truth. Now, people need to know the truth about that. Back in the day, because I know when I met you, I know what Terry, your wife, was wearing when I met you guys. I
Uh,
remember the whole setting. This was Orlando, May 2017. It's crazy how my mind works because I remember everything, but I never remembered any of the answers when I was taking a test in school. But a conversation for another day. I remember begging somebody to introduce me to you because you were one of the 100 franchisees that I was responsible for.
uh,
But one of the things that I remember about that time on that project is that I was associated with a project that didn't have a lot of credibility within the network.
that would
And
be a very large understatement.
right. And because that project didn't have a lot of credibility, I had to work ultra hard to talk to people. So I was so scared that you're gonna file a restraining order against me that day. But I asked somebody to introduce me to you, and this was 2017, so 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 7 years later. You
Yeah.
are probably, out of the whole project, the only person that I say this is a friend of mine. If I'm stranded either in Missouri or Northwest Florida, I can call and I'll be rescued. But what a journey it has been since then.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of ups, a lot of downs,
A
and
lot.
one of them things. I mean, I'm kind of out of the industry somewhat now. I mean, kind of
Yeah.
hanging on the edges a little bit, but that's about it.
That's so crazy. That's so crazy. So, for the topic of today, for our visionary effect, and I want you to tell us all about your little history as a visionary, starting with maybe the first grand vision that you accomplished in your life, that one goal that was so ridiculous that you felt like nobody could relate to and you went for. But the topic of today, since you are a former restore, it's going to be the lessons that you learned, in other words, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then we're going to play a little game of had I known then what I know now. So let's start with Dennis as the visionary. What would you say was the first career or professional goal that you had of your life, or the first business that you opened, and how you went about accomplishing all of that?
I wanted to work for myself since I was probably 10. I mean, I really did. I mean, and actually, I started my first business when I was about 13. I started cutting grass, and I was in one of them scenarios where I didn't have any money, but I needed to get a lawnmower to be able to cut grass. So I went to my father, and he says, "Yeah, I'll loan you." That was, I don't know, I think it was $65, $70 back then to buy what I needed: a lawnmower, trimmer, gas can. And I said, okay, and he loaned it to me. Well, the first week I come back in and he's like, well, how much money did you make this week? And I think it was $35 or something. And he just put his hand out. He says, give me the money. I gave him the 35 bucks. He gave me $5 back. He says, this is for gas for next week. And I got none of my money until I paid him back. And that's the way I was raised. It's just the way it is. You know, you borrow money, you pay it back first, not second, not third, not fourth. It's always first. And I don't know. And then from there, you know, I went into school. Ended up going to a trade school to learn print because for some reason I wanted to get into it. I was in the printing business at the time. And one of my neighbors was in it. That's kind of followed him through and loved it. Went to school, got it, learned it, went out, started working in it. And a couple of years into it, I made up my mind at that point. I said, I'm going to own my own business. And I was 19 or 20 at the time, maybe. And that's kind of how I went about it. And in my first 4 or 5 jobs that I had from, you know, probably 18 to 23 or 24 were all about getting the expertise in order to do it myself. And the last guy I worked for, fairly significant company, I was his general manager for about 5 years. And I just looked at, if he can make money doing this, I know I can. And that's how I started. That was
So
my first company.
who was your inspiration? Who was that person that you looked to for inspiration of who you could become?
I don't know that I had anybody because my father was not an entrepreneur. He was you know, he was a lifetime, you know, Southwest back in the day, AT&T and Southwestern Bell employee, 45, 50 years almost. And so, I mean, he was not that. And actually, when I went into my first company, I had no money at all. I think I borrowed $10,000 from my father, and he loaned it to me only because it was me. And he kept telling me, he says, you really don't want to do this. I can get you a job here, you know, whatever. Didn't want it. I wanted to do it. And so you talk about bootstrapping. That's what that's all about, too. And I made a living on it, grew a company. We went from 0 to, I guess it was almost $5 million in sales over the course of about 7.5 years.
That's
And about
amazing.
7 years, I took on a partner, merged 2 companies together. And I ultimately sold out to him because I was just bored. I was bored with the industry. It was making awesome money. I was, you know, it was like I had the dream job from everybody. I was working maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, half a Thursday. The rest of the time I was down at my lake house. I was boating and fishing and everything else.
And having
And
a good
I really
time.
was. I was bored. So I sold out to him, moved to Phoenix because I had lived there once before when I was much younger, and I loved the environment out there. And I went into the trades. I'd never been in the trades. I started a demolition company, had no idea what I was doing, and drove that up from 0 to almost 5 million. For some reason, 5 million was my cap, but for myself, I don't know why. But I did that. Same thing. My wife hated Arizona. She wanted to come back to St. Louis. So I looked around at my customer base, and I was paying attention to the people because I was in there during when the recession kind of hit around 2010 or so,
Mhm.
and the economy, especially in the construction market, was just tanking miserably. So I was just looking around, and who of my client base was still making money? Well, I did work for Servicemaster. I did work for Servpro. I did work for Paul Davis. I did work for belfor. And all of those guys were still making money. So I said, this is a business I need to be taking a look at. So that's when I started investigating. And I investigated every franchise known to mankind. And I've never been involved in a franchise. And the only reason I did it is because I had no idea how to operate this stuff. And I didn't know what it took, all of that. So I'm like, I need to learn it somehow. And I thought that would be the easiest way to do so.
That's amazing.
Not
You
not the
know,
greatest move in my
no,
life.
but you know what I find interesting? I mean, I share a lot of you know, I'm hearing your story starting at 10. I started at 10 officially, all of that. And with parents that couldn't really mentor you. I remember you and I had a conversation the other day and we were talking about the stock market. And you're like, you could have called me. And I'm like, I didn't even think about calling you. And that's how naive. I think that a lot of people are, especially people who want to build a life for themselves that they have no access to around them, right?
Right.
And I think that that is, in a sense, the visionary effect. We talk about the domino effect, but the visionary effect being, I usually say that in my trainings that a vision is an ever evolving thing. You never achieve a vision because the closer that you are to that, it seems like the mark became another one and then you expanded your vision and you go
Right.
into something
If
else,
you're a
right?
true, if you're a true visionary or a true entrepreneur, the bar continues to go up.
Yes. And that's exhausting, isn't it? I was talking to
It
a
can
friend the
be,
other day.
but there
Yeah,
again, when I didn't do that, when I held my printing company, I got bored out of my mind.
yeah, I know. And that I can relate to because I was talking to a friend the other day and she said, "Oh my gosh, I feel so sorry for you." And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "You never get to a vision because it keeps expanding. So you're always running. It must be exhausting." And I said, "But I would get bored if if I wasn't doing that." Like,
You have that same personality, it's just the way it is. Some people, the world needs a lot of workers too. And workers aren't visionaries. They're good people. You need them. All my employees, I loved them to death. They were great people. We had a great time together. We made money together. But, there's a lot of those workers, they couldn't run the business for anything. They just can't. They don't have the mentality for it. They don't want to do it. That's more than anything. It's the drive. If you don't
mhm.
have the drive to do it, you'll never succeed.
Well, and they also say that you either work for yourself or you are paid to build somebody else's vision,
Exactly.
right? But you're
Exactly.
right. We need everybody. But talking about visionary being an ever evolving thing, one of your visions or goals or projects that you did, and that's how we met years ago, you joined the restoration industry, and you're telling that, with your business back in Arizona, you saw that restoration when construction was going down 09 and 10,
Yeah.
restores were busy, so you joined the industry. So let's talk a little bit about the lessons learned. I guess we're going to play this game of had I known then what I know now. So I'm
I
going to
got, I
start with
got,
an
I got a
easy.
book that's about that
I'm going to start with an easy one.
thick.
Had I known then what I know now, would I've taken Richelli's first call?
Probably not. Because I don't want to make it too easy for you. Then you
You're
wouldn't respect me.
right. I had to work for it. I
That's
had to
right.
work for it. But jokes aside on that, the had I known then what I know now, would you have joined the industry?
No.
No. Why is that?
Um, when I first got involved, I didn't know enough about the industry to actually ask the correct questions.
Like
So
what?
you're relying on this, I don't know what they called them back in the day, business consultant, sales rep, whatever you want to call it. It's the person that's making money off of you buying a franchise. So they're not offering up the questions that you don't know, because those are the questions that are problematic, at least for a person like me. I had a couple of companies prior. Nobody ever told me what I'm going to charge. And all of a sudden, that's like the first thing out of everybody's mouth is, well, you can only charge like this. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're going to tell me this isn't McDonald's. I'm going to deliver hamburgers for $1.25. I'm like, so it was that. And, then you get into this preferred vendor stuff that they share, which, in my opinion, that's the biggest disaster of our industry is preferred vendors. Because you go in there and the only way you're going to get it over some other franchise is you got to give them a better deal. So you're cutting your money. You're either cutting your money or you're doing work for free, or both, which is what we did. We did both all the time. And it drove me crazy. Why me and franchising just didn't get along at all. And if you talk to some of the people I worked with in our corporate office, they would certainly verify that.
So I guess the question is, had you known then what you know now, what questions would have you asked to prospect the person that was prospecting you, that was trying to get you to buy into that system?
I would have been asking a lot more questions about the finance side of it. To me, I've always been, business is business. You sell, you watch your margins, you keep an eye on your expenses, and what's left at the bottom is you. And when you own your own company, and I preface this with outside of a franchise, you make exactly what you're worth all the time. You get into a franchise, you could be making a lot more money, and all of a sudden you've got a system that's sucking your profit out of you. They'll sell you this, oh, we have a 4% royalty. And they don't tell you plus, 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 plus. And it ends up being about 8.5%, 9%. Well, that's a lot of money, especially when you get into working with TPAs, for instance. Oh, well, you're only going to get 10 and 10. Well, then your TPA wants 5 points. Then you got 8.5%, 9% from your franchise. You're at 14. So now you're working at 6 and 7 points and you're carrying money for 120 days. You're losing money on every job.
So had you known then what you know now, the first question you would have asked is probably the finances and how it worked.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Had you known then what you know now, independent or part of a brand?
Independent for sure.
Why is that?
I don't like people telling me what to do. I am an entrepreneur. I don't need somebody to hold my shirt in the back and tell me which way to turn, and to be honest, that I got a lot more interference than help. It just was. And you'd go out there and you'd work your backside off to get a client, and then all of a sudden it's the client's that's an insurance carrier that they have a preferred vendor program with. Now I'm stuck with their system again. So I worked really hard to get this because they didn't deliver it to me. I went out and got it myself, but I get stuck with their program, and I got to put it in through their system, and it's just, I don't know. It's to me, it was like babysitting. You got a babysitter overlooking your shoulder the whole time. It's just, most people that want to get involved in their own business don't want a babysitter.
True.
And I didn't either.
I've worked with you in the project and outside the project. So yeah, I know how you work. It's like, get to the point.
Yeah.
Knowing then what you know now, would you have brought the family to work with you? Your daughter was your CEO, your wife worked with you. Would you have brought the family in with you?
I would have brought them into the business. I probably wouldn't have brought them into that business because my frustrations were the same frustrations they were having. Christy's over there calling people at corporate trying to get answers, and all you got is this big circle, and people are running around in a circle. And you ask a question, and all you get is questions and questions back. You never really get a true answer. It's always very vague. It's like, well, if you do this, that, and okay, can we get some real answers here? So, and Christy, I got frustrated. She got very frustrated because she's I'm a big picture guy. Christy's a detail person.
She
And
is
it drove her crazy to not be able to get details.
very German Shepherd personality. She likes to know that 2 + 2 = 4, and that she can take that to the bank. Yeah. Hi, Christy, if you're watching us. Had you known then what you know now, what would you have asked about maybe cost of acquiring customers or how to acquire customers in the beginning? What would you have asked as you're prospecting this opportunity? Tell us a bit more about that.
I would have a lot more questions about that, because I own 3 or 4 companies now, and I'm not a sales guy. I'm a marketer. I'm a marketer to an extent, but I'm not a salesperson. I'm not a door knocker.
Okay.
I can do it if I have to. When I first start a company, you got to walk around, you got to knock on doors, you got to do cold calling. And after I get past the second one of the day, then I'm fine. It's the first 2 that are painful, but after that, it just becomes routine. And it's just, you would acquire a client, and all of a sudden, your corporate people were discounting what you just did because I may have went out and acquired the customer, acquired it, they didn't. And then they just discounted my stuff by 25%. I'm like, I don't want that discount. I want full price, And so, there was that portion of it, but then they didn't really help you acquire. you did when we worked together. I mean, you have a system. And, I mean, it was funny because as soon as we started getting comfortable with what was going on with that place's system that you were providing, pushing forward, all of it's gone. Like, what happened here? So what's the matter here? You got something that's working and you got to get rid of it?
So what's the story again? You go into a meeting and you say, the only thing this department provided of value to me was when Richelli was here doing all these things. But
It was.
yeah,
I mean, their marketing department that we were involved in, I mean, they spend a ton of money, a ton. And every time we went to a corporate meeting, it'd be like, oh, we're going to raise this again. We're going to increase the price again. Unless you were at the top level, the big franchises that were on the district meeting boards and all that, they were self-serving like crazy. So they would want everybody else to pay this extra money, but if you have two franchises connected, you don't have to pay that. It's stupid stuff like that. Yeah.
So I like that you're going with that. So had you known then what you know now, what would you have asked about cross territory, how you work with the franchisees that are within, your community, if you will, and tell us more about that for people that are listening to
I got
us.
some of that information just from where I was in Phoenix, because when I started looking, I had some friends that owned, some Servpro, some ServiceMasters. I knew the guys at Belfor, and I just started asking questions of them. And I got most of it because they knew I wanted out. I told them, I said, my wife hates it down here. I gotta get out of here or I'm gonna end up being single. And I didn't want to be single. I like my family. So.
And you like your life, which we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But
Yeah,
so you talk to the guy, he
yeah.
tells you you wanted to get out, and that's kind of like how you went to finding opportunities that were back in St. Louis.
I kind of got their take on the business.
Okay.
What's the good, what's the bad, some of that kind of stuff. And you get some, but I mean, Servpro was obviously different than where we were at or where I was at. They're all different, similar but different, I mean, marketing, budgets, all of that. But I mean, our marketing was just horrible. It was just horrible. I mean, they spent all this money and we never got, I never saw I never got, in my opinion, I never got one single client out of all the money I spent on their marketing stuff.
Wow.
I
Man,
mean,
I was
hey,
part of that. That's horrible, Dennis. I was part of that, and you didn't get your money's worth.
No, but you weren't in it long enough. You left me in the middle.
So with that, let's talk about what you think people should understand when they join a system about the difference between marketing and sales. For you as an owner, franchisee, what were some, knowing then what you know now, what are some of the questions that you would have asked to know what is involved with the marketing aspect of that you're buying into versus the sales aspect of it all?
Right. Well, they wanted everybody to market. I don't believe in marketing. I believe in sales.
Mm-hmm.
You can call yourself a marketer if you want, but at the end of the day, you have sales responsibility. You better deliver.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
To go out there and buy a skid of licorice and throw a different label on it, hand out barrels of licorice all over St. Louis or wherever you're at. I don't know. Does it do any good? I don't think so. Because typically the person at the front desk isn't making the decision, and that's as far as you got.
Well, on that, I will say this, though. I think that one of the things that people need to understand, and you correct me if I'm wrong, because I have like the trainer, I was part of the corporate team versus,
Sure.
You being a franchisee, but also me having been part of the with owners like you and all of that. I think that when you buy into a franchise system, what people are calling marketing should really be like brand recognition. And since brand recognition, there's no, from my experience, it's very hard to see your return on investment. It's really hard for you to actually tangibly say, I paid this 10%, therefore I got this. I think that had I known then what I know now, I would have pushed sales from the beginning, which were those tangible systems that allows you to implement conversations, systematic conversations that allows you to see if you're talking to the right person, the value of that conversation, and the markers along the way to know that you're closer to getting a deal. Because for you as a franchisee, as an owner that bought into a franchise system, again, correct me if I'm wrong, what you wanted was for your phone to ring from all the money you're paying.
Absolutely. And, I think if you're out there truly marketing, it is a part of it is brand recognition. It's a lot of it. 'Cause
Mm-hmm.
especially like when I first opened up in St. Louis where I was at, I was the only one. So
Mm-hmm.
nobody knew who the heck we were. So, I mean, because there was a previous one, but the guy passed away, but they weren't marketing at all. They weren't making sales calls. I mean, they were living off of program work. And you can't do that. You just can't do that. And so, I don't know. I mean, going there, dropping stuff off, that's okay. But you still have to ask for a sale. You just, if you walk in there every week or every 2 weeks for 6 months and you hand out a pack of candy or a pen or a coffee cup or whatever, well, they're gonna love you to death. You know why? You don't ever ask for anything.
Yep. I hear
We
you.
love you. You keep bringing us free stuff and you don't ask me to do anything. But you gotta ask for the business. If you don't ask for the business, they're gonna give it to you just because. You have to ask.
Agree. So again, with that, had you known then what you know now, would you have either suggested or asked for more for like, I'm trying to frame as a question, but I guess it's a statement with a question at the end, that perhaps out of those 10% that you're paying to any strategic marketing fund, that maybe 20 or 30% of that was for brand recognition and more of that was to create relationships on a regional level that will make your phone ring? What would
Yeah,
you say the mix should be?
I would say more than 10% locally.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is they never did that. They wouldn't do anything
Mm-hmm.
local for us. You want to market locally, you spend your money. This is for
Mm-hmm.
national stuff. Well, you don't really get it. You don't really get any input in the discussion about what they're doing. You got a marketing manager, a VP, or, they have more VPs than the bank does. But you got the VP of marketing, you got the director of marketing and all that stuff. And all they do is, they listen to sales pitches to them and decide what to do with it.
Mm.
And if you don't like it, it's too bad. Like they spent millions of dollars, millions on some kind of radio advertising. I never got one phone call off of that. And I spent thousands of dollars a month supporting that. And it was worthless. I would have much rather taken that money and hired another, direct sales rep and said, here's your base and plus commission.
Mm-hmm.
So
I agree with that, and I actually think, and a big disclaimer here: not every brand operates the same way. I think that
sure.
when somebody wants to, I was having a conversation with a good buddy of ours about, joining a franchise system or not joining a franchise system. And he was like, it's kind of like marriage. Sometimes people just want to date forever. They don't
Right.
want to commit to anything. And when you commit to something, you better date for a long time and
Yeah.
see if the philosophies of that family align with yours, which is a joke that I have in my family here with my husband all the time. I tell him, I'm like, had I known then what I know now, I would have made your parents pay me a dowry because I had to join that family, right?
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
again, when we look at franchise systems, not every brand is the same. Not every brand operates the same way. But I very much agree with you that I think that considering the fact that restoration is not lifestyle, is situational, meaning
Yeah.
most people don't even know that this industry exists until they have a problem with their home.
Right.
I would honestly say that maybe, and I'm being conservative here, but anywhere between 30 to 40% should be spent in marketing and the rest in sales, meaning opportunities locally for franchisees
Right.
to have work. That's what I
Yeah.
would say,
I
right?
agree.
Or tangible sales programs like you and I were talking about. I visited with your office, I think 2 or 3 times
Yeah.
before I left that program, and you hired me directly to act as your sales manager.
Right.
But a lot of that which you're paying into, which they called marketing, you didn't have an ROI. It really didn't help you when you were closing deals, essentially because it's not lifestyle. It's not restoration, is not lipstick or
Right.
remodeling a bathroom. It's situational. It's really once every 10 years, somebody's going to have the need for our services.
Right. And most people, you spend multi-millions of dollars on some kind of radio thing. most people don't even know they still don't know you exist. Because radio, in my opinion, that's a waste of money. You know,
And there's
really.
no call to action, right? I
No.
was talking, I think, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I remember
That's all
talking
right.
to somebody back in the day, and we are creating, we had the marketing plan and we're creating all of that. And he said, okay, put $2,000 down for Yellow Pages. And I said, how much did you get from the Yellow Pages last year? He was like, I don't know. I said, why are you putting $2,000 down for the Yellow Pages? He says, because I like them. I'm like, dude, you like me too, but you're not sending me a $2,000 check. Oh, okay. And then the other one says, yeah, I'm going to do a banner at the local car wash. And I said, why? So that people know about me. I'm like, dude, correct me if I'm wrong, but what are the chances that a guy is driving through the car wash and right when he sees your sign, his wife calls him and says that the house is flooded?
Yeah,
So,
zero
right?
to zero to
Yeah,
none.
exactly. So I think that is one of the misconceptions, if you will, that people have when it comes to marketing versus what you and I have talked about for years. If you're going to stop by, know the numbers. How many accounts do you have to stop by?
Right.
Be strategic about that. The questions that you need to ask to qualify or disqualify that person, and actually know the numbers, know what people can potentially give to you to make it worth your while. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, one,
Like,
in my opinion, traditional marketing doesn't work. Marketing does not work in our industry.
so what do you mean by traditional marketing?
Meaning, signage, flyers, and, all of that. I mean, because I did a lot of that. I mean, I did that in Arizona. Even though I was a subcontractor to generals, you still market it because they see you. And it was different. You would market to events like BOMA or IFMA or something like that. And I did a lot of marketing to those kind of events, and I got a lot of direct business outside of the general contractors, which they weren't so happy about, but I was, because I made better money and I got paid faster. So, but the same thing in our industry. I mean, will a billboard do you some good? Maybe, for brand recognition, but you might as well not put a phone number up there because nobody's writing it down. I mean, I talked to a local TV station about doing something with all three of the franchises that were local at the time. And they said, don't even put a phone number up because nobody's gonna write it down. First thing you're gonna do is Google you. So, it's the truth. I mean, so that's what I mean. Traditional doesn't work. Anybody else, they would say, if you're an ice cream shop, put the address and phone number down. Maybe they're gonna write it down because they're in the mood for ice cream. But the chances again of somebody watching the baseball game and your commercial come up and they're having a flood right then, pretty slim.
It's true.
Our industry to me, the two biggest ways to get business was you had to knock on doors. You had to walk in people's door, ask for business, and with agents, you had to sell against their own company. Because their own company wanted to they wanted to force and push the preferred vendor program because they're saving money, they're controlling it, so they have all that control. Well, as an independent, which is where I would go for sure, outside, franchising, there's good franchises out there, but they all have the same problem. They're all signing up for preferred vendor programs. They're discounting it. You're forced to do certain things that you don't want to do for nothing. Project management hours, you get paid. You don't get paid ever with these guys. I'm like, really? I got a $400,000 reconstruction of a home, and you're telling me I don't need any project management because the trades will just follow each other automatically. Yeah, that's the insanity of that industry. It's not that they don't want you to have project management. They're just not gonna pay for it. They expect you to do it because if there's a question, they call up and say, who's the project manager on this job?
So with that, I guess the question is, what would be your biggest advice for somebody that they made a decision, they want to start in the industry?
Yeah.
Biggest advice of things that they should prepare for before opening a restoration business?
If they have no experience in the industry, they need to find a mentor somewhere. And it could be somebody like yourself if they hook up first, they got to develop a sales plan before they even think about it. You got to understand, can you sell this and can you sell enough to make a good living at it? And making a living is not enough. If you're in business, you gotta make more than a living. You know, that's just all you're, if that's all you're doing, you just have a job, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So you need to plan your marketing out first. See what your expenses are gonna be. And then you need to hire somebody that's gonna help you on the backside as far as getting projects done, that knows what they're doing, because you don't. So you need somebody that can help you learn all that too. So you need to develop that. There's training programs all over the country where you get in, you get the certifications, you need to get some of those in advance. And because not that you're gonna be out there necessarily doing the work, you might be at the beginning, but hopefully short-lived. But you have to understand the industry, what it is, what are you doing, how are you accomplishing it? Somebody asks you a question, you have to have an answer, and it better be a good one. Because there's people out there that actually know this, especially if you're going after commercial work. Those guys typically have been down this road before. They understand what's going on, so you need to have the correct answers. I don't know if that
So,
really answers the question.
no, it does. And it leads me to another question. What do you think, because we talked about the bad and the ugly quite a bit. What do you think was the best thing that joining this industry did for your life? The greatest blessing of being a restorer for like what, 8 to 9 years, 9 years,
Yeah.
right?
I made enough money to retire.
Made enough. Okay. So for people that are looking for an opportunity to, they pay their dues for, let's say, about a decade,
Yeah.
you make good money and you're able
Yeah.
to retire.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
What was the biggest, so that's the biggest blessing, the biggest lesson that helped you as a professional in the last 10 years of being part of this industry?
Who or what?
I don't know, both.
Well, I mean, you helped me drive sales without question, and you actually kind of forced me to get some standards put in my own business too, because I was kind of a seat of your pants manager at the time, and which is why I always got stuck at $4 or $5 million, because I wanted my fingers on everything, and that's when I hired Christy. Said, you take over all this, I'll do the big picture stuff, talk about hiring salespeople, but you drive the business, which is what we did, and we were accelerating. Yeah. So, I mean, with that being said, I don't know. I think it's a good industry. It can be very profitable. You got to know how to manage it. I mean, if you want to make real money, stay in water. You want to reduce your margin, join all the vendors in the TPA program and see if you can come out alive on the other end. I went to a meeting one time when I had my demolition company, very large project. There was a big meeting. All the subcontractors were invited to bid. Were there, and we were redoing. I think it was a Winco Foods at the time. It was a Walmart previously. We had to do all this demolition. They were converting it to a Winco Foods. And the guy asked the question, how many people in here work for Walmart? And all these people raised their hand. I said, first thing out of the guy's mouth, he goes, congratulations, you survived. Most people don't. And that's the same thing as the TPA industry, in my opinion. Yeah, it was the worst mistake I ever made in my life. So
And I hear you on that. I will just, and again, I don't get paid to endorse CPAs on anything. The only thing that sometimes I tell people is at least you know what your cost of acquiring the customer will be.
yeah.
And your margins. And I say that because I was doing a consultation with a guy in upstate New York about a year or so ago, and I was running their numbers, and you know how I am with numbers, this number of accounts, these leads, conversions, and everything. And I said, dude, this guy is on track. This guy, meaning the BDM, is on track to cost you 237% as cost of acquiring the customer. And I remember the guy being like, so, and I'm like, I'm sorry, maybe it's because I learned math in Brazil, but isn't every job like only 100%? And it didn't sink in because, and I remember that he was like, and I'm against TPAs and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yet you're okay with somebody costing you 237% because you don't have a plan in place. So would you say that for some situations, and not even forever, so some people in some situations, that maybe joining a TPA might be the only way for them to get things started and actually getting jobs?
I think part of my kind of edge against TPAs is I was involved in the franchise system. So I had to pay so much of it away to somebody else. And like water work in a TPA, you can make money on water work because the margins on water are significant enough if you gotta give away 6 or 7 points, you know, their TPA fee and a couple of points of giveaways and all that, you're still gonna make good money. So the water side of the TPA still makes money. But they want, if you're doing a water, they instantly want you to handle the reconstruction, and that's where it just all goes bad. Unless you have your own construction firm in-house. But they're, you know, you're being forced to subcontract other people, you know, if you're not doing your own buildbacks. And there's just not enough money to do it properly, because they shortcut you all the way through. You know, oh, we don't pay for that, or we don't pay for this, or we don't pay for that, or that's too much. You know, you only need a half a gallon of paint. I know you gotta buy a gallon, but we're only paying for a half a gallon. You know, stuff like that. And that's TPA work.
Yeah.
You know, you can't get paid properly.
So know before you join, in a sense.
Do your research.
And we are just a couple minutes from wrapping up, but I gotta say that one of the things that I've admired the most about you, you know, all the years that I've known you, is how happy you are in your marriage. I mean, you and Terry have an amazing relationship. You guys have built a beautiful family, and you guys have worked together.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that you would say for people that, because you know, people sometimes when they open a new business, they bring anybody that will come in just for the journey, because you know the money is not quite there yet. So what are the secrets?
You don't want just bodies.
I understand, but what would you say if you had it to, you know, so, since you have such a beautiful, successful marriage, what would you say to somebody who's starting a business with their spouse of how to still be happily married and build a business together? But what would you say were your top 2 or 3 secrets for having a happy marriage while building a business together?
The biggest thing is you have to define responsibilities. Who's doing what? And don't cross. You know, if the wife's doing the accounting side of the business, you better not be in the middle of it, unless there's something you need. You've got some client that needs some information or whatever. But other than that, let her do her job. If you're having problems there, well, then you have to deal with that. Because that's happened before to me in scenarios where everything's not working perfectly. Maybe somebody doesn't understand or needs more training in something. And, you know, we did that. You know, Terry went to stuff that she didn't know, so she had to go get trained on it. That's okay. You know, that's part of it. You know, you need to train yourself. You know, you need to train your own people very highly, but you need to train yourselves at least that much, and usually more. So, you know, that's part of it. And the same thing happened with Christy. You know, when she came in, I mean, we all interacted all the time, all day long. There'd be interactions. But I mean, I had certain things that I handled, and Terry or Christy did not talk to me about it unless we were having a meeting and discussing. Other than that, she let me run my portion. I let them run their portion. And if there was problems, then we met and talked about it. It wasn't, you know, walking down the hall throwing stuff all around, screaming at people, because that gets nobody anywhere. You know, you're going to have a heart attack and you're going to lose employees because they don't like the environment. You know, so does that help?
It helped. It super helped. I love that. Because, you know, I also work with my husband, and now my son is my assistant. And one of the things, especially being a visionary, being a Doberman personality, about a year or so ago, I heard my husband, Michael, saying to Lorenzo, our oldest, you know, when your mom sees something wrong and she calls on it, it's not because she's angry. It's just that it's a problem and she wants problems fixed. So
Exactly.
I guess understanding how the other operates, the personalities and the dynamics, so that, because business and projects are not going to be with us forever. And my hope and goal is to have my family forever, which I know is yours too.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, you have to respect them like anybody else in the organization. Probably more so because they are your family. You know, because when you go home at night, if you want some dinner, your wife better be happy. Either that or you're cooking.
your wife likes diamonds, you know that.
Yeah, I know.
She is like me. She inspired me with the car. I'm like, I'm gonna have a car just like Terry's, and I got it. That's a great thing.
Well, she's got diamonds coming. We got about 4 weeks to then we're 40 years.
Well, that's amazing. What a journey. What a journey. Yeah. Side note to that, there's a restorer who's a client of mine who's also a jeweler. So I'm getting some stuff because of him. So that's really cool too. I guess then the last question that I will ask you is, knowing then what I know now, or knowing then what you know now, what would have been one of the first advices you would have given me when we started working together in 2017?
You want me to be bold? I would have told you to quit.
Absolutely.
I
No,
would
no,
have told
no.
you to quit your, I would have said, quit your job
And why is that?
because the people you work for didn't respect you.
Yeah, that was a tough one. But
Yeah.
I have been practicing gratitude in my life, and in looking back at that journey, I was with that project for 4 or 5 years. I don't even remember, but um, I remember that one of the things that I've learned was that for me personally, that I am a consultant, therefore I could never be captive, if you will, working for a brand, because there are indeed laws and regulations that prevents franchise people that work for the franchisor to have candid conversations that you always wanted to have with me and that I knew I
Right.
would get in trouble, right? So
Oh,
so
yeah.
when so what would you say changed from how it was working with me when I was assigned as part of the franchisor versus when I was directly on your payroll, if you will, working? Like, did you see any difference in how we interacted,
Oh,
or?
it was like a 180 degrees like that overnight because then you could speak openly. You know, you didn't have to protect a system. You didn't have to protect us. Didn't have to protect your boss because maybe your boss was screwing up, which we know was happening. And
Some
because
challenges.
of that, you know, and it's probably ultimately why you parted ways when you did, because they didn't protect you at all. They protected
Yeah,
themselves. You
yeah.
know, so I mean, once you got on your own, I mean, it was just night and day. You know, you got to train the way you wanted to train and the way that worked because you were being forced to train in the way that just did not work.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you on that. So with that, I will actually say then, so that we conclude this on this first episode of the Visionary Effect. So honored that you're here. I think that for me, one of the things that I've learned is that if I wanted to make an impact, I
Yeah.
could not be silenced. And it's
Yeah.
it's interesting because we're in 2024 right now, where people get canceled all the time. I
Oh,
mean, I
yeah.
know you and I share same views and politics and a lot of things, and I think that that is one challenge that I would say that most people who join a franchise system, they don't understand, is that they could even come across people like me that are really in to make a difference and to help people, but and to help businesses to grow, but they are limited in how much they can interfere. So what I say to a lot of franchisees right now, when they say, well, why would I pay for you when I have this person as part of my franchisor team? I'm like, you actually don't.
Yeah.
Because
Because you want success. That's why you do it.
yeah, yeah,
You know, I mean, if you look back at our old system that we were involved in, I mean, there was a guy on top. He wasn't the CEO, but he was way up there. If you disagreed with him or challenged him in any way, shape, or form, you were gone. I mean, he didn't want legitimate debate in order to achieve a better product. It was like, if you disagree, you're gone. Still happening. Happens every day over there. I still have people or friends that are involved in it. Oh, I guess who's gone this week? Well, doesn't surprise me. So they
yeah,
were they were good at what they did, and they would debate people, and they don't like debate. You know.
yeah. Yeah, and I think I know who you're talking about. We are here recording, so we're not going to talk about that. We promised ourselves, but I
Right.
think that there's that side, obviously, but there's also the Richellis of the world that were, like, you can't say these things. You don't understand. Like,
Right.
there are laws that regulates franchise or franchisee relationships, and for those people, I would say, if you're part of a franchise system, you're going to have to hire a consultant.
Yeah.
I wanted to share this with you because, because I was so excited. I told you right away when I was the keynote speaker for a big event. I was
Yeah.
telling on my keynote that there is only 3 types of people you should listen to. The ones who have what you want, the ones who had what you want, and the ones who want what you want. So bear with me. The ones who have what you want for inspiration. And I honestly believe that inspiration is the result of information and motivation, right? You want to get pumped up, but you want the information. You need a consultant. So be ready to pay for the person that has the recipe, right?
Right.
The ones who had what you want and lost it. The education, you get the education, you learn what not to do. I
Right.
mean, what an amazing way to not make mistakes when you can look at somebody and say, okay, knowing then what you know now.
Yeah.
And the third one for me is really the ones who want what you want, because from those you get collaboration. Because it can be a lonely journey, wouldn't you say, being an
It can.
entrepreneur and
I mean,
visionary?
that's probably the only upside to a franchise, is you got a lot of people you can talk to if you want. Outside of that, independent all the way. There's franchises, like I said, mine was somebody I would never recommend, but there are franchises that are decent out there. Especially some of the newer ones that are coming up, because some of those started from other franchises saying, this is what we see that's wrong, and we're gonna correct it.
You're
So
gonna
some
make it
of the smaller
different.
franchise systems coming up are certainly much better than the old established ones. So,
That's awesome.
but at the
Yeah.
end of the day, if you know how to knock on doors and bring your own business in, what do you need them for?
You're locally owned and operated.
Right.
Dennis, this was such a pleasure, such a treat, especially being your birthday, 28th birthday, and you're coming on this call with me. I gotta say it, and I, again, practicing gratitude. You have been such a good collaborator with me throughout the years that I've known you. After the restraining order on the first event, and I remember always finding time to talk to you because I could have those candid conversations where we were like, okay, this is the problem, how we solve it. So
Yeah.
for that, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for
Oh,
being here
that's
today
fun. I enjoyed it.
on your
Yeah.
birthday, talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly about joining the restoration company, you guys. So if you want to know more about Dennis, Dennis is on social media. I've been trying to convince him to be a consultant as well, because I think a lot of people could benefit from having him as a coach and mentor. But thank you very much, and happy birthday to you, my friend.
Thank you. You guys have a great day.